Hi everyone, welcome to Everything Dog Training Podcast with me, John McGuigan. If you don't know who I am, I'm a dog trainer and behaviour consultant in Glasgow in Scotland. I've been running my business for around 17 or 18 years and I've travelled the world teaching trainers and other dog enthusiasts, much like yourself, I dare say, if you're listening to this, about dog training and the benefits of positive reinforcement approach to dog training. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you for spending time with us. I know that there's a lot of content out there, so thank you. Thank you for joining us. And if you're a repeat listener, welcome back. And again, we're competing against lots of stuff, so thank you. We've got a few things that we're going to talk about today. Not really a main subject, just stuff that I've been thinking about over the last week or so, and I made a few notes, so it'll be a wee bit of a smorgasbord of topics today, but hopefully we'll get some use for it. A couple of things: if you're needing to, or if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me through my socials, which is at Glasgow Dog Trainer. I'm on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. Please do messages and reach out to us. We always enjoy getting feedback from our podcast. And where else can you get? It's through our website, glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. We also have our online membership. Now we're changing the membership platform, so we've got an online academy and we're changing how we run that with some new features. So there's still opportunity to get in where it is just now, which is £15 per month, which works out about $20 per month. You can cancel it anytime, you're not tied into it. And if you use the discount code in the description, then you will find you'll get 50% off your first month. We've also got a WhatsApp group as well, which I'll link in the show notes for this. And the WhatsApp group is basically expand on various concepts that I've shared on social media. So we have a little bit of a discussion about that, and I'll open it up for questions as well. So there's an opportunity for you to ask questions and get immediate feedback. Not immediate, rather, get feedback from me. So I'll link that as well. So that's the admin stuff. Yeah, but please do reach out. The last thing before we move on to what we're talking about today is I was thinking in the earlier episodes where if you go back through, so I think we're at episode nearly 50 or so now, and if you go back to the earlier episodes, I talk more about technical stuff, like what is positive reinforcement, and things like that. What is classical conditioning? I probably will go back to that. If you find that useful, then let me know about that, and I can go back and or I'll revisit various aspects of learning theory and how it applies to our dogs. So it's good to have knowledge of the science behind it and the terms, so that we can have a greater understanding of it and we can apply those concepts, know why we're doing things and not doing certain things with our dogs for their benefit. Okay, so that's a few things out the way. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about leadership and what leadership means and what it doesn't mean. I'll share a story with you. So many years ago, over 20 years ago, for those that don't know, I was a police officer for a long time, and I had some personal stuff going on, and I needed, and it was a genuine need. I needed to get into there was a role that I needed to get into. Now I had worked hard to get there. It was my turn to get that role, and I made a mistake. Now the mistake was not catastrophic, not at all. I'll be scant with some of the details. It was not catastrophic. It wasn't illegal. It was barely procedural, and also I had worked hard over the previous years to get to that position, and it was pretty much my first faux pas, or first mistake actually. One of the very few big mistakes that I made when I was in the police. Now, as a result of that, one of the bosses, the chief inspector at the time, read me the Riot Act, and I didn't get the job that I was looking for. Now, when I was saying that I needed the job, I needed it for family reasons. I needed the new shift pattern that was available to me for family reasons, and so the reason why I had made the mistake was because of the family problems I was having. I wasn't concentrating very well. I was needing help, actually, and that's how it manifested, through that mistake. And as a result of making that mistake, I was then punished further. Alright, so something was removed from me as a sanction for doing that, which then made my need greater, so it actually made things worse for me. Considerably worse. And I went to see a great man that I worked with, who Big Jim, and who was another supervisor. He had been my supervisor and was a supervisor on one of the other shifts. Now Jim's an amazing human and has a PhD in psychology. So yeah, just a phenomenal man, a great cop, a brilliant detective, and the best boss I have ever worked under. I don't know if Jim will ever hear the words I'm saying about him, but I have told him. It's always nice to hear kind words that are said about you, but he was a massive impact in my life. And I went to see Jim, and I said to him, what do I do about this? And he said, you need to write the boss a letter, who was the superintendent, okay, a man called Mike. And I just kind of bared my soul, actually, wrote out my circumstances, why I needed that job, and asked him for help. And Mike was he was my superintendent at the time, and he was this proper old school cop and another great human being, a great man, and he came in and said, yep, not a problem, John, you've got that for the foreseeable, okay, and he said, not quite as long as you need it for, but you don't need to worry about that, and that will take some relief of the pressure off you. And that moment, one of the few moments in my life, probably changed my life in a significant way for my benefit, to my benefit rather. And years later, when Mike was about to retire, I went in and thanked him and told him the impact I had. And what was the coolest thing, I'm trying not to get emotional thinking and talking about this, one of the coolest things that he said to me was, it didn't cost me much to do that for you. He says, but the impact on you was substantial. Now, he had recognised my need, was in a position to provide it, and provided it for me, because he recognised the whole being, the whole picture, whereas the chief inspector, who was the rank below him, had only seen the symptom, had only seen my behaviour, and hadn't taken into consideration or full consideration of everything else. Okay, so just wanted to think about that for a minute, that story, alright, and then what I try and do with all of my analogies and with storytelling. Storytelling is hugely powerful to make points. We've been telling stories to make points for years, years and years. If you've just watched, if you have seen Andor, the Star Wars show on Disney Plus, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, right, I would go back and watch the 2 seasons, or go and watch the 2 seasons of Star Wars. My friend, my good friend, he had never been into it, ever into Star Wars. He's a few years older than me, so I think he'd probably kind of missed the boat a little bit when he was younger, had just been probably a little bit too old for it coming out in the late 70s. And I said to guys, you should watch this. And he watched it and was like, it's like phenomenal. It is the best television and the best storytelling I have ever seen. And if you watch it, you will see you'll see what the story that they're telling, the points that they're making, how that reflects on our society and what's going on in the world, and a whole bunch of other things. So storytelling is hugely powerful. So that aside, how does that apply to our dogs? We get a dog who is ragging on the lead. So the dog jumps up and grabs a hold of the lead and starts pulling on the lead. And I had this comment today on one of my Facebook videos where I had a video with working with Sonny. He's on a 10 metre long line, which is, I suppose it's kind of like a synthetic fibre, but it's rubberised to help with your grip. And somebody said, what kind of lead is that? It looks really strong. He says, because my dog chews through all the other leads that I put on. Now, for me, what I said to the person is, you have to address why the dog's chewing on that lead. Is the dog chewing on the lead because they want to get away from you? Are they chewing on the lead because the dog has been restrained and doesn't want to be restrained? Are they chewing on the lead because the lead is bothering them physically in some way? Alright, but there is a reason, a function of that behaviour, and by addressing the function of the behaviour, we then don't have to work on just getting a stronger lead, because the stronger lead just deals with the symptom and the inconvenience to us, the same way as the chief inspector had just dealt with the inconvenience to them of me breaking the rules, if you like, okay, and seen it as something to be punished. So if we look at that dog chewing through the lead, a lot of times what will happen when young dogs will chew in the lead is people start using a chain lead instead, and what happens is the dog then hurts their mouth or their teeth on the chain lead, so they stop doing it. But that has done nothing to address is the dog jumping up and grabbing a hold of the lead because they're bored, stressed, the lead is bothering them in some way, or it's hurting them in some way, it's dangling in front of their face, they need to play, they're suffering from anxiety, overwhelm, over-arousal, and so on. Okay, so showing good leadership, actual leadership, not garbage pack leadership nonsense that we see and have been, being the boss of the dog and having to be the pack leader. Actual, true, benevolent leadership that I mentioned of Mike and Jim in my life. Can we have our dogs? Can we play that role for our dogs? So recognising that, if you've listened to the podcast I did a couple of weeks ago on the not so great walk I had with Sonny, I have to recognise my own shortcomings in that scenario, and then address them for his benefit. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's proper benevolent leadership. And then if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and do listen to that episode. So when we're my advice is, if you're taking my advice, okay, what I'm saying about this is we have these stories that go on. We see this information that's out there through poetry, songwriting, art, any form of art, storytelling, literature, film and television, our own lives, and we can take examples of that if we open our mind up and go, there was something interesting went on there. Can I learn from that about how to live a better life? One, live a better life full stop, and two, live a better life with my dog. Okay, so that's the first one, right? So hopefully that's been more than just a interesting anecdote, and it's been useful for you. Right, now, a conversation, this popped into my head a little while ago from an interaction I'd had with somebody a few years ago, and the person was going through the loss of a family member, and they were saying that as a family they weren't dealing with it very well, and what this person had said was, I just avoid it, I just shut it all down. And I said to them, well, because I know from my own experience and still learning about this and still trying to apply this to my own life, we've got three options really when we're dealing with emotions. We can either feel them and process them properly. Okay, so feel that feeling in the moment. So even joy, recognising, you're watching your dog playing at the park or just moving around and sniffing or lying there sleeping, and you watch that, your dog, and that feeling that you get, which is caused by oxytocin usually, that feeling that you get of, oh my God, of love, of affection. If we pause to recognise that, and truly pause and be present and recognise that, we then go, oh, that's a lovely moment to have. Okay, so we're recognising the emotion that we're feeling, and we're pausing to appreciate it, savour it, sit with it. Okay, negative emotions I don't really want to I don't imagine anybody particularly wants to savour or appreciate those emotions, but you get the idea of just sitting with that emotion and feeling it, so being present. Okay, and that, so you're recognising and processing those emotions. This person who was undergoing their grief, what they were saying, there was a family member who expressed it through anger. So what was happening there was they were externalising that, and they would have aggressive or angry outbursts a lot, so big explosions of behaviour, of emotional behaviour, slamming doors, shouting, screaming and bawling and all those types of things, right? So we externalise that. The other way, if we're not dealing with it, is we internalise it and we just avoid thinking about it, stick it down into your gut, screw the lid on it and don't deal with it. Okay, now what will then happen with that is, if we're not processing it properly, is that it'll either make us ill. Alright, so we keep internalising it and the body will just, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a psychiatrist, I'm sure, and was talking about the effects of trauma and PTSD on the body. So The Body Keeps the Score is an excellent book on this. So you internalise that and you become ill. Autoimmune diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, stroke. Okay, probably Alzheimer's as well. I don't know, it's not my field. Okay, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's maybe as well, may all be affected by this because the body keeps the score. Okay, so we become ill, your skin breaks out, and a whole bunch of other things. Okay, so that's when we internalise it, or we internalise it until we can't hold it anymore, and then it bursts and the floodgates open, and then we externalise it. Right, so those are our three options. Internalise it, don't deal with it and internalise it, don't deal with it and externalise it, or process it. Okay, so as far as I can see, and if you've got other thoughts on that, please let me know, because I would be interested to see if there's another option with that. So how do we help our dogs with that knowledge? Your young dog gets excited to see another dog, okay? And they are getting frustrated because they're being restrained on that lead. So they're feeling stuff. Frustration is the feeling. I want to go and say hi to that dog, and you're holding me back. Okay. Now we move closer to the dog, and depending on your dog's social skills, it might then be a total car wreck when you get there. It might be not a total car wreck, only a partial car wreck, or it might go well. Okay. So we've now got the emotions of, I'm going into that situation, that social situation, and I'm not the best prepared for it, so I don't know what to do when I get there. So we get some stress feelings, maybe some anxiety going on there as well. Okay, and then depending on your breed, your dog, your type, your breed, the sex of your dog, it can then trip into some aggression as well, which can often happen between young male dogs. Okay. So all of that's going on there. So obviously we can't sit down with our dog and talk it through, right? We can do that with ourselves. Talk therapy, movement, art therapy, music therapy, and a whole bunch of other things. Okay, cognitive behavioural therapy. But we can't do a lot of those with our dogs. But what we can do is, can we hold our dog at a distance where they are feeling, we can see the physical manifestation of some of that emotion, the kind of lowest iteration that we can get, so the dog sees, our dog sees that dog and is interested in it, okay, and then we hold them there, and we're looking for a reduction in that intensity of that behaviour, which a lot of the time will be their ears will relax, their tail will relax, shoulders will relax, their mouth will then become open and they'll sniff the ground, or a combination of those types of behaviours. So we've got a focused, intent-focused reaction to the dog. That's what we're seeing, what we can observe in the dog, and then we're looking for the dog to dial that back. And when the dog dials that back, we then have options of moving towards the dog, doing something else, moving away from the dog or whatever. Okay, but you're allowing your dog to feel those feelings, be present with them. Okay, dogs are pretty much present anyway. Yeah, you know, I would suggest that dogs are present most of the time. They've got memory, obviously, and they can and a sense of anticipation. So memories in the past, anticipations in the future, but most of the time they are present. So we've got, can you sit with that, and then can I help you process that? and then we can play games. Can you come back towards me and focus on me? Can you settle down now? Can you do that in the presence of that dog? So yes, I recognise that you're feeling like that when you see that dog. Can we pause there? Lovely, son, you're looking at me, that's fantastic. What do you want to do now? Would you like this treat? Would you like to play with the ball? Would you like to play tug? Would you like to sniff the grass? Would you like to move towards or further away from that dog? Okay, so we've got those emotions there. Okay, so that was just another thing that came to my mind about this information that flies through there and how we can apply it to, again, to our own lives, and then how to make it better for our dogs. Okay, right. Number 3, I've got 5 on the list for today, and there was so I'm 52. There was a great detective show that ran from 1993 to 2001, I think it was, or 2002, in the state, or it was an American cop show, NYPD Blue. It was brilliant. I think the best cop show ever, ever. And I don't think that we've had any. I'm hard pushed to think of even any cop show or an American TV police serial since then which was anywhere near it. So if you remember ER, that was a medical drama, and it was very, very similar. It was a kind of police equivalent of that. Brooklyn, the other one, Third Watch, was not bad actually. Some of that, it got a wee bit ridiculous, but some of that was not too bad, and that was probably round about the same time actually, maybe ran a little bit into the noughties, beyond 2001 or 2002. Anyway, I digest. So they had this great police drama, and the main character in the later series was this old detective called Andy Sipowicz. And Sipowicz's character he'd been an infantryman in Vietnam, had come back in the late 60s or early 70s, had joined the police, and had been then recruited to work undercover against like the Black Panthers and stuff like that. Okay, so lots of trauma, history of alcoholism, and his character development was great. It was absolutely wonderful. I loved that character, and I loved that show. It was just amazing. Anyway, you can probably hear the affection that I have for it. Now, there was a great scene in it where he was teaching his son, who was in his 20s, was going to join the police, and Sipowicz was then taking him out in the evening to just walk around the neighbourhood and point out things and lessons to his son about being a good cop. And one of the things, this is the point of this, and how we apply it to our dogs. The phrases, I really remember it because I actually took this into my own police career to a degree. He said to his son, "People and places, the things they do and the times that they do it." Okay, so people and places, the things they do and the times that they do it. And what he was saying is the story he told us when he was a young uniformed cop. There was a guy it was a toy factory, and they made various toys, but they also made toy guns. And late one night before Christmas, one of the workers has obviously snuck in to try and steal a couple of these toy guns for presents for his children. And as he was coming round in this dark, street or dark alley, and he came out and he had these 2 guns, and Sipowicz nearly shot him because he thought it was an armed, bad guy. But then he was like, no, this is a toy place, and that gave him pause. Okay, so that's the point he was making with this story. Now, I was at the park yesterday, the day before, yesterday actually, yeah. And as we were coming down to the park, I was with my dog, and as I was coming in, there a guy came in, and he has 3 dogs, and as he comes through I have had at distance interactions with his dogs before. So Sonny's on the long line, and the last time I had an interaction with this fella, I remember him shouting at his dogs. So the dogs weren't doing anything wrong, and Sonny's friendly, so I would have been more than happy with that interaction if the dogs had come close, but he obviously wanted to get his dogs back, and he started shouting at his dogs, and not in a just at volume recalling his dogs, giving the dogs a hard time, like don't even think about it and don't you dare, that kind of nonsense. So I recognise this guy, I recognise his dogs, and I'm aware of the time that he comes into the park. So the park that I work at, there's a pretty much a kind of 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock crew, and I work them around my clients, and this was later, and I'm rarely in the park at that time with clients, but sometimes I'm in there with Sonny, depending on what else I've got on with the day. And so this was at 11:15 or something like that in the morning, and I remember, oh, that's that guy from the last time who gave his dogs a hard time. So what I did was I just gave this guy a wider berth. I just moved a little bit further away with Sonny, called him in and moved away to give this fella and his dogs time and space to get past. Okay, so having that knowledge of the environment through which you take your dog out, okay, to walk your dog or to exercise your dog, knowing the times that people go, the places that they go to, and what they do. And it's not just walking their dogs, it's how they interact with their dogs, okay? And by doing that, it means that I can keep my life less stressful, I can keep Sonny's life less stressful, I can keep his dog's lives less stressful, and considering how he is towards his dogs, he is further down my list of priorities, but I can make his life less stressful. And when I've said this before a lot, if I can do that, if I can keep us away from him and his dogs, it means that his dogs then don't get a hard time. So a lot of time people say to me, when you see this kind of rage bait content on social media where people stand in places and other dogs approach them, and then we got all the rage bait clicks and comments saying, I hate it when this happens. Yeah, mate, you're not unusual, right, that you hate it when that's a fairly normal reaction, that you're just walking down the street with your dog and you hate it when other dogs come into your space, especially if you don't want to be there. Wow, right, you had a human emotion, which is really common. That's not, my God, right? What makes you different is then to say, what can I do for my dog and that dog? And I dare say that you're listening to this podcast because you want to make life better for your dog, and you care about other people's dogs. You care about dogs. Some people don't care at all about people, which I get, right? We all have to deal with our own misanthropy, rather. We all have to deal with our aspects of our dislike for people, and but we can do that for the dog. All right, we can keep ourselves safe so that dog gets less of a hard time. Okay, so people and places, the things that they do, and the times that they do it. All right, now moving on from that last point I was wanting to talk about today. Just moments after the interaction, just after telling you about, I'm coming into the park, I'm going into the car park, and I see a woman. She has 3 dogs, and she's waiting on her friend. Now, I don't know she's waiting on her friend because she's standing at the gate with her 3 dogs. And in order to be relatively discreet, I will not describe or name the types of dogs that she had, okay, because the world's a small place and people might recognise her. Anyway, she's standing at the gate with the 3 dogs, and we are about to navigate through there. And as we are going through from the park into the car park through the gate, the friend is coming in with her puppy. Alright, now the puppy looks 4 months old at the most from the breed of the dog. She's got the dog in a slip lead. Okay, the dog then becomes the 3 dogs that our friend had become excited because this second person is arriving, and they move through to greet her. When they're excited and greet her, the puppy then gets excited, and immediately, because the dog's 12 weeks old, or 16 weeks old, becomes excited. they move through the gate and then they park themselves right on the other side of the gate, within the park, so the park side. And this is the bit that kind of cracked me up. I just gave them some space to watch, because I always watch people with their dogs, but I gave them some space with Sonny. I just held him back, and the dog's desperate, the puppy's desperate to get off lead to play with the other 3 dogs, and she keeps telling the dog to sit. And she's telling the dog to sit and then starts correcting the dog on a slip lead. Now when I say correcting, it is a correction, okay? It is a physical, it's causing the dog physical discomfort to say stop doing that, and then the discomfort gets released when the dog stops doing it. Okay, so it's basically saying I will make you do this through pain or discomfort. So she keeps pulling up on the lead and telling the dog to sit. And then, this is the bit that gets me, she says, you're not getting off the lead until you sit. Those were her words, as if the freaking puppy understood any of that, okay? And I'm sitting there, just let the dog off the lead. Just let the dog go and say hi, or move into the park. Dissipate some of that energy first if you don't want to let the dog off the lead when they're excited like that. And then let the dog off the lead, but do something other than just repeating yourself and pulling up on this slip lead. Now, I object to the use of slip leads anyway in training. I think it's unforgivable to use it on a 12-week-old puppy or a 14-week-old puppy. I just want to, what the hell are you doing, right? I don't yet, and I don't think I'll ever, I'm working on it, plus I was having to deal with Sonny as well, have the skills to say to him, can I show you a different way there? Okay. I think it's easier for some women to approach other women and say that, but yeah, it's not anything socially I'm going to open myself up to, is approaching somebody, another woman, and saying, approaching a woman and saying, can I show you a different way there? Okay, it's just no, it's not anything I'm going to do just now. All right, and yeah, so she eventually gets the dog. The dog sits after about 30 seconds of being harassed by her, and then goes and plays with other dogs. So what would have been a better option there? Okay, well, obviously they gave you a couple of examples of that. We could move further into the park, get the dog on a harness and a longer lead to start with. Right, that's the first thing. Move further into the park with the puppy on a lead, and wait till some of that excitement starts to dissipate. Now that might take 5 or 10 minutes, and the reason why we want not to let, or we don't want to let the dog off the lead when they're excited like that, is because we'll massively reinforce all those excited behaviours, the pulling with intensity, the standing rather than the settled behaviour, the moving, the pulling. Those types of behaviour will be reinforced if we give the dog the big prize of getting off lead. So we can walk through the park to try and remove some of that frustration and dissipate some of that energy. When a dog starts to settle, then release the dog to go and play. And the second alternative is stand still for 3 or 4 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. If the dog shows quiet, still behaviour, even for half a second, good lass, good boy, let the dog off the lead, and then we build from there. Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect. What this woman wanted the dog to do is to sit still when they were going to the park. The dog has anticipation of going to the park and getting off the lead, and 3 other dogs that were there that looked like the puppy knew. And this woman wanted the perfect picture before that dog got off the lead. And I look at that and go, on what planet is that possible? Okay, but can we get a version of that and start building from there? Okay, so those are some thoughts on. One more. Right, I made another note. Let's see what time we've got. Yeah, we're doing okay. So we've got 35 minutes. All right, we're all right for another few minutes. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, again, this is a client from a while ago, not recently. Okay, and again, a puppy, not a big puppy, not a small, so a medium-sized breed, and the woman was saying she lived with her flatmate who had another dog, and the woman was saying the puppy keeps biting her in the face. And the question I always ask at that point is, how is that dog getting access to your face? You know, the dog has to have access to your face, and that dog can't jump high enough at that point. So how is your face close enough to that dog in order to get bitten? Okay, now what was happening was the woman kept kissing and cuddling her dog. So that's the woman's need. Okay, I need to give my dog physical affection like that. Now, Sonny loves petting. We will go forehead to forehead. I don't do it often. He likes it. I will, when we're doing that, I am able to kiss him on the forehead. Alright, we've got that kind of nuzzling behaviour that we're going on, but he gets plenty of cuddles and all the rest of it. But it's when it's appropriate, and it's not all the time. I think he would probably take more of it than I'm willing to give. I think he's a real cuddle monster. The woman's dog was not a cuddle monster at this time. Okay, now that might develop. So what was happening was, she didn't leave the dog alone. She just kept, she couldn't keep her hands off the dog. She just wanted to kiss and cuddle the dog all the time. The dog was there for cuddling, as far as she was concerned. And I said to her, but your dog doesn't want cuddled all the time. And what's happening is, when your dog is hot, thirsty, tired, has come in from a walk and is all of those things and a bit just and needing to rest, stressed, overwhelmed, has been playing for too long, needing the toilet, a whole bunch of other things, and you want to cuddle your dog and you get into your dog's face, your dog's going to turn around and start mouthing or biting at your face. And when I said that to her, she was like, "All right, I get it." Okay, and I said to her, there's a time and a place for cuddling. See, when you've met all your dog's needs and your dog's chilled out and you sit on the floor with them and they come up next to you and just settle with you and let you pet them, or you're sitting up on the couch and the dog comes up and, sits next to you and sleeps, or just relaxes, that's the time for those cuddling behaviours. And if you want to, kissing your dog on the forehead, and I mean occasionally, not all the time, alright? Kissing's a human behaviour. I don't even think chimpanzees or bonobos do it. So, yeah, that's a human expression of affection. And I said, but it's contingent, or it's specific to circumstances where your dog wants it, right? So once I cleared that up for her, it made it really, really, really easy for her to understand that. Now, what was interesting as well was the flatmate had then said, the puppy sees the client, our friend, as a playmate. And I said, no, that's not what's going on. No, I actually think she said a plaything. Okay, she just sees her something to be played with. And I says that, and I pointed out, I did it as diplomatically as I'm able to. Listen to me, all right? Sometimes I'm like a bull in a china shop with my explanations, but I explained to her, I said, I know that that's what looks like it's going on, but it's probably not. Okay, so the friend's frame was, the dog sees you like a plaything, has no respect for you, sees you as something just to be played with and discarded, or at best on an even keel. And I said, but none of that's accurate, because it's not hierarchical. It's the dog just turning around and saying, I don't want cuddled just now, can you get out of my face please? That's nothing to do about lack of respect, disobedience, obstinateness. Is that the word? Being obstinate. So that's an adverb, isn't it? Being. Yeah, I think adverb. So what would be the noun? Anyway, you don't need to tell me, I'll look it up. Working through things in my head while I'm talking to you. Being obstinate, stubborn, disrespectful, blah blah blah. Alright, and again, none of those were accurate. So reframing that through a behavioural lens, what is the dog trying to achieve? Why is the dog trying to achieve it? What circumstances is the dog needing to achieve that behaviour? And what can we do about answering those questions first to reduce that behaviour? Okay, so hopefully this has been, if nothing, it's been interesting, and hopefully it's been informative to some degree, giving you some things to think about. Please do let me know. I'm always always happy to get constructive feedback about my podcast. I get them occasionally. We've had a couple of people sign up for our membership as well, having listened to the podcast. So massive thank you for doing that. It helps support us. And and I'll catch you next time. Much love to you.